I think for somebody who's just starting out as an entrepreneur, I think the internet is a great place to start. Because if you're just starting out, unless you've got a ton of capital that somebody gave you or you inherited or something, you have to start a company that requires a small amount of capital, where it's heavily weighted towards the intellectual capital in your head. So I think anything to do with sort of software and with the internet is a really good starting point. It would have been impossible for me to have done electric cars or rockets, right from the start, because those require money to get anything done. I tried to not run two companies, but then I didn't have a choice. I had to run both companies, or one of them would have failed. Well, there were certainly many hiccups. That's an understatement. More like choking to death and barely surviving. So it was difficult. I mean, never having been in the auto business, it was impossible to predict all the issues that we would encounter ahead of time. So we knew it would be hard, but we didn't know it would be as hard as it was. And then with the downturn in the economy, which particularly affected car companies, General Motors and Chrysler went bankrupt. On the energy side, I think by the midpoint of the century, I think solar power will be the single largest source of electricity. It may not be a majority, but it'll be the single largest source in the combination of photovoltaic and solar thermal. So I think that's a pretty positive thing that will occur. It's going to require an enormous amount of work and investment and everything, but that's where I think things will end up. Well, I think the barriers to entry, the higher the capital requirements, the higher the barriers to entry. I mean, the reason why we haven't seen significant improvements in space transportation is because the barriers to entry is extremely high. It's normally the province of governments and big governments at that. So when there are high barriers to entry, then you don't see the new entrants, and you don't see the innovation. It's really the new entrants that would drive innovation. For entrepreneurs that don't have capital, they're really going to have a hard time starting a company in a high capital business. Right. It's possible, but in order to do that, you have to work at a company that does something comparable, so you have a convincing story to venture capitalists to give you quite a significant amount of money, rather than instead of saying, say $3 million, you need to say $30 or $40 million. It's a much higher hurdle. Right. And so therefore I think it's better to try doing something which requires low capital as kind of your first company. With the success of that, then take the capital from that and plow it into your second company. That's what I did, basically. Right. It's basically just software as applied to those industries. Well, we expect it to be very difficult. It's just going to be different for different people. In my case, the companies that I've started, I wanted to have a significant effect on the future of the world, or try to at least. And so it wasn't really from the perspective of figuring out what is the easiest way to make money, because that would have certainly ruled out rockets and electric cars. But it was really from the standpoint of what do I think are the important problems that have to be solved in order for humanity to have a bright future, and and sustainable energy, both production, consumption, as well as space exploration, and ultimately, getting out there and exploring the stars. I think those are two major ones. I think the biggest problem that humanity faces in the 21st century is sustainable energy, terrestrially, and then the biggest problem of the sort of millennia is the extension of life beyond Earth. So I want to try to do as much as I can in that regard, even if it's not the easiest way to make money.